Hi everybody. I am going to talk about the impact of migration and urbanization on families. India is currently experiencing a revolution in the family system. The dramatic changes in family life reflect equally the changes that are happening in the Indian cultural system. With no more boundaries, many explicit and rapid developments are happening. With more than half of women population into labor force, widespread access to birth control methods, legalized abortive procedures being available, rising relationship expectations, fast-paced migrations happening both internally and internationally, rapid urbanization and related processes, all of these have profoundly altered the nature of male-female relationships in every major social institution, especially within the family. The two important determinants, namely migration and urbanization, make great impact on the family system in India. At the end of this talk, you will understand the concept of migration and its types, comprehend the concept of urbanization in India, get to know the impact of migration and urbanization on the family system. Let me describe migration and its types. Migration is a movement of people from one place to another for various purposes, mostly being related to taking up permanent or semi-permanent residence, usually across boundaries. The history of migration can be traced back to the movements of the first human groups from their origins in East Africa to their current locations in the world. Migration occurs due to various factors which could be encapsulated as the push and pull factors. The push factors are those which force a person to move out due to reasons such as drought, famine, lack of jobs, overpopulation and civil war. The pull factors are those which encourage or invite a person to move in. These include a chance of a better job, better education and better standard of living and so on. Regarding the types of migration, the typology of migration can be based on various criteria. Let me outline the generally recognized types of migration. Intercontinental migration refers to the movement of people between continents. People leave the country to settle down in other continents in search of greener pastures. For example, migration of people from India to the USA, Europe or Australia is a classic example of intercontinental migration. Movement of people from one country to another country within a given continent is known as intracontinental. The increased migration of people, especially the Keralites from Kerala to Gulf countries for better job prospects, is an example of this type of migration. Inter-regional migration refers to movement within countries. For example, the movement of people from the northeast to South India for want of better education, job or livelihood. Such migrations can be further classified as internal or external based whether it is within or outside the state, country or continent. Population transfer takes place when a government forces a large group of people out of a region, usually based on ethnicity or religion. Impelled migration, which is also called as reluctant or imposed migration, is one where individuals are not forced out of their country but leave because of unfavorable situations such as civil war, political unrest, ethnic conflicts or religious persecution. For example, at present, the migration of people from Syria and Iraq to European countries as refugees because of the internal war. Step migration refers to a series of shorter, less extreme migrations from a person's place of origin to final destination, such as moving from a farm to a village to a town and finally to a city. This occurs in a step-by-step progress and is hence named so. Chain migration includes a series of migrations within a family or a defined group of people. A chain migration often begins with one family member who sends money to bring other family members to the new location. Chain migration results in migration fields, the clustering of people from a specific region into certain neighborhoods or small towns. Return migration, which is also known as circular migration, is the voluntary movement of immigrants back to their place of origin. Seasonal migration involves the process of moving for a period of time in response to labor or climate conditions. For example, after the agricultural harvest is over, the farm workers move from their village to work in cities off-season. All these types of migration can be permanent, temporary, voluntary, or forced. There are various groups of people who migrate and for specific reasons. Let me mention the terms used to address people who migrate for specific reasons. Emigrant is a person who is leaving a country to reside in another country. Immigrant is a person who is entering a country from another to take up new residence. Refugee is one who is residing outside the country of his or her origin due to fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Internally displaced person refers to a person who is forced to leave his or her home region because of unfavorable conditions, but does not cross any boundaries. Migration stream refers to group migration from a particular country, region, or city to a certain destination. Let me now tell you the reasons for migration. People migrate for a variety of reasons. They consider the advantages and disadvantages of staying versus moving away, as well as factors such as livelihood opportunities, safety, distance, travel costs, travel time, modes of transportation, terrain, and cultural barriers. Several types of push and pull factors may influence people in their movements, sometimes at the same time. Such factors could be environmental, political, economic, and cultural. Let me discuss the impact of migration on the families. Migration clearly has an impact on family life. It is a known fact that family patterns change when people move to another place. These changes are often shaped not only by the cultural beliefs and practices they bring with them, but also by economic, legal, social, and cultural forces existing in their new environment. There is a significant impact on the women in the family. Migration can throw up new opportunities for members of the family to explore the outside world. In addition, it also brings in new challenges. It provides opportunities for women to go for work outside the home and bring in sometimes higher wages than they did in their place of origin. Women often are forced to go for work outside to cope with the rising expenses and challenges of reality. Ultimately, many end up doing menial, undignified, and hazardous jobs. Migrant women face many difficulties, and in fact, migration adds to women's burdens. It is often reported that households become less patriarchal and more egalitarian when migrant women gain access to social and economic resources that they were previously beyond their reach. However, it should also be noted that women now have started to face the brunt at both ends, at home and at the workplace. This takes a toll on the physical and psychological well-being of the women population. When the male member alone migrates, leaving behind the family, the woman takes up the gear of running the household. Female-headed families have their share of advantages and disadvantages. In many cases, women alone migrate, leaving behind the husband, children and the other family members. In such cases, the women are not able to be present physically and attend to the needs of their growing children, husband and family members. She misses out many memorable and important events or milestones of the family. Migration also affects intergenerational relations in the family. It is often a story of conflict between children and their parents. Children, having been brought up in a new social and cultural world, often feel constrained by old world practices and values of their parents. Conflicts over a variety of issues such as over discipline, over freedom to hang out with friends, over parental pressure to marry within the ethnic group, over intense parental expectations for children's educational and occupational success can arise. Leaving children behind in the custody of relatives or grandparents has its own repercussions. In such cases, children are denied the bonding with the parent and fail to form a connecting relationship. The healthy development of the child also gets affected, influencing the child's perception of the role of parents in one's life. Migration also plays havoc on the educational needs of the child in the form of disturbances and distractions due to change, lack of attention, inability to adjust and accommodate to the new environment, and denial of education itself. Migration also influences the health of a child, starting from access and availability to affordability of healthcare services. Migration has an untold effect on the parents who are left behind. The elderly often become victims of the empty nest syndrome as a result of migration. In the state of Kerala, for example, there is an increasing trend of children migrating to Gulf countries, leaving behind the aged and ailing parents. The problems faced by such elderly people are manifold. They live a lonely life, left uncared for and unsecure, and fall prey to boredom. Many of them undergo a wave of psychological disturbances and turmoil in the late stage of their life. Some of the elderly parents are forced to live in old age homes in spite of having children who are well off but not living with them. The parents of the migrants face a lot of hardships at a time in life when they have to lead a peaceful life. Migration has a great impact on the total family system. Migration invariably leads to being rooted up from one place and getting planted in another. This means the inevitable leaving behind of one's kith and kin. Migration often results in the weakening of the existing social support systems and family bonding in a community. The individual or household that migrates often misses out on being a vital part of all activities carried out in the locality, such as festivals, celebrations, developmental progress, etc. Being away from the original place, the family usually accommodates the new patterns of rituals, customs and practices. The value system also begins to change, and so does the dynamics in the family. New orientations are picked up and old ones given away. Migration can strengthen the family to become a tightly knit single unit and can also scatter it into small isolated islands. Let me now tell you about urbanization and its impact on families. Urbanization is defined as an increase in the proportion of the population living in cities and towns. Urbanization began during the Industrial Revolution, when workers moved towards manufacturing hubs in cities to obtain jobs in factories as agricultural jobs became less common. Urbanization has been on the increase, especially in the developing countries. The United Nations organization predicts that by the year 2030, 60% of the world's population will live in urban environments. The three main causes of urbanization are: 1. Rural to urban migration is happening on a massive scale due to population pressure and lack of resources in rural areas. These are push factors. 2. People living in rural areas are pulled to the city. Often they believe that the standard of living in urban areas will be much better than in rural areas. They are usually wrong. People also hope for well-paid jobs, greater opportunities to find casual or informal work, and better health care and education. 3. Natural increase of population is caused by decrease in death rates while birth rates remain high. Let me mention about the impact of urbanization. The impact of urbanization can be seen evidently. As societies become increasingly urbanized, the social emphasis is placed on achievement rather than on ascription. Urbanization has brought about many changes in various spheres of urban life, namely physical, social, economic, psychological, and cultural aspects. Urbanization has had its impact on the family system. The family as an organization is largely affected by the changes in the social structure. Change in the social structure affects the status of the family members. Many basic functions of the family are now performed by the secondary institutions and associations. For example, formerly, child rearing and education were the primary functions of the family, but in today's urban centers, there is a need for dual income families. This need compels women to move out of the house and start earning. Naturally, the function of child rearing is then transferred to a secondary institution and child care is outsourced to the creche or baby care center. The changing status and the role of women in the present times have also brought about changes in the family structure. With industrial development, her role is not only confined to the four walls of the house, but she also has to go out and work. This change has brought about changes in the relationship between husband and wife. They are now more of companions or friends. This change has also affected the family structure. Nowadays, one can find more single parent families, namely either mother or father staying alone with their children. Many other unusual types of families are also springing up rapidly, such as gay or lesbian families and families where the partners are in live-in relations or just cohabiting, namely staying together without getting married. The family system and its structure are undergoing a dynamic process of transformation with the changing times and this is being accelerated by the migration and urbanization that is happening at a fast pace in the name of development and progress. There is a great challenge ahead to protect the institution of family, which forms the most basic and primary unit of socialization and procreation. The process of urbanization has brought about a multitude of problems for families, particularly for women. In general, there have been some problems such as lack of proper housing and growth of slums due to overpopulation, high cost of living, disintegration of joint family, environmental pollution, increased rate of crimes such as theft, murder, cheating, pickpocketing, and sexual assault on women and children. It is a universal phenomenon that the most vulnerable groups of the society, namely women, children, and elderly, bear the maximum brunt of any assault, and the same is true even with the impact of urbanization on mental health. The major mental illnesses that affect the people are psychosis, depression, sociopathologies, addiction to alcohol and other disorders related to substance use, conduct disorder, relational disorder. Urbanization accelerates the process of migration, which results in separation from family. People, especially the younger population, migrate from the rural area to the urban settings, leaving behind the elderly or the family, and are forced to live a life of loneliness. The factor of loneliness is a matter of great concern, as it can lead to depression or suicide. The family members, particularly the elderly who are left behind in the villages, are also likely to experience deprivation, dementia, and ill health. It is imperative to take note of the impact of urbanization on women's mental health. Women play multifaceted roles such as daughter, wife, mother, caregiver, breadwinner, and so on. They find increasingly difficult to play their roles, as each of these roles is affected by the process of urbanization. Another negative impact of urbanization is the increased sexual violence on women. One comes across such incidents every other day in the media. It is very agonizing to imagine the repercussions of such painful experiences of women on their mental health as well as their family members. Let me sum up. The family system in India is undergoing many changes. Indian families have moved away long back from the closely bonded joint family system to the nuclear family system, which may find convenient. With increased impacts of development and exposure to the global world, the changes are rapid and happening door to door. Migration is a movement of people from one place to another for various purposes, mostly being related to taking up permanent or semi-permanent residence, usually across boundaries. Several types of push and pull factors may influence people in their movements, sometimes at the same time. It is a known fact that family patterns change when people move to another place. These changes are often shaped not only by the cultural beliefs and practices they bring with them, but also by economic, legal, social, and cultural forces existing in their new environment. Migrant women face many difficulties, and in fact, migration adds to women's burdens. Migration has an untold effect on the parents who are left behind. The elderly often become victims of the empty nest syndrome as a result of migration. Urbanization is defined as an increase in the proportion of the population living in cities and towns. Urbanization has brought about many changes in various spheres of urban life, namely physical, social, economic, psychological and cultural aspects. The family system and its structure are undergoing a dynamic process of transformation with changing times, and this is being accelerated by the migration and urbanization that is happening at a fast pace in the name of development and progress. Let me sign off now and hope to see you in another session. Thank you.